everybody, welcome back to another episode of A Gardener's Journey Homestead. As you see, I have my backpack sprayer on. I'm actually fertilizing and doing a treatment on my plants, and I thought I'd turn the camera on and take you with me a little bit and answer a question that I got on a video maybe 2 or 3 videos ago. And that question was, what did I use on my plants for my aphid infestation and for pest pressure? So since I'm in the midst of doing one of those now, I was like, oh, well, let me, I just remembered, I was like, let me come on in and talk about it. So let me finish. I have a little bit more liquid in my backpack sprayer that I'm going to use on the outside garden. And one of the products that I'm going to talk about is actually in my backpack sprayer, along with some Ultra and some earthworm castings liquid. So let me do that, and then I'll come right back. We'll take this off. It's not as heavy as it was now because we're almost at the bottom. And then I'll show you and talk about the products that I use to help with my pest image. Okay guys, we got watering done, we got fertilization done. So I'll talk to you a little bit about the products that I use. I have them here on the table with me, but let me first kind of give a backstory and some context, especially if you are new here. So if you are new, thank you so much for stopping by my channel, and I hope that this is not the last time that you stop by. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button right now, because I promise you, you're gonna love me. Anyway, and for those that come every single time, I appreciate you and thank you so much for being so faithful, so consistent, and so encouraging. I really do have the best YouTube community. I feel blessed and grateful that I get a chance to talk to you guys every single week. It feels like sometimes every day, but every single week, and I feel like we just have a good thing going on. So I am in zone 7A. I'm in Tennessee, and this is my 3rd summer gardening. And so this summer, I've done, you can, if you're new, you can go back and watch the past few weeks of videos. I've talked a lot about how this summer's plan is not going according to plan. And I talked about that I had a huge pest, which I think was an aphid infestation that I discovered. It's probably been about 3 to 4 weeks ago now. So as I'm shooting this video, this is like going into the 2nd week of July. And yeah, I probably had the first part of June. One, I thought it was really early, because I'm like, man, this is a lot of pest pressure right at the beginning of what I would consider, you know, the crux of the season. And in my 3 years of gardening, I have had pests, obviously. I've had Japanese beetles. I have definitely dealt with a lot of squash bugs and things like that. But I have not had an aphid infestation. And so what I noticed was on my tomatoes, I came into my tunnel. Well, I'll back up. So I was looking at my tomatoes one day, and there was like this, on the underside of the leaf was like these little brown, almost like a brick red color dots, just like covering it. Almost looked like it was dirt, because at first I thought, oh, okay, this is some dirt or something. But as I got closer, I'm like, it's more of a reddish color than a brown color. I still did not think it was a pest. I'm like, what is this? Anyway, you know, I watered that day and it came, you know, right off, so to speak. I came back and it was there again, you know, in the next couple of days. And it was more plants. It was just like kind of going down my row of tomato plants in my tunnel. And then I started noticing it on my tomatoes outside. Well, one day I came in to my tunnel and my tomatoes looked like they were literally on their last leg. They were brown, yellow, like literally overnight. I had watered the night before, I had fertilized the day before. I came out the very next day and I just saw brown and yellow and just brittle, like they looked really bad. And I had never ever seen that. My heart dropped, because I'm like, man, what is going on? And it's one thing when you know, when you have a problem, you know what the problem is and you know how to treat it. That's a different level. But when you have a problem and you don't even know what it is and you don't know where to begin, as a new gardener, that can be very frustrating. That can be very scary. And I felt all of those things. I felt lost. I felt clueless, because I didn't even know what it was, because literally I had never really, and I thought aphids looked different, right? Anyway, fast forward. it was pretty bad. I kept looking up stuff. I'm like, okay, is this fertilizer burn? Because I had just fertilized the day before, but of course I always fertilize, in the morning or primarily in the evenings. But the day before, I had fertilized that morning. But it was like maybe 70, 65 to 70. No, not 65, maybe 70 degrees in the tunnel. So I'm thinking that should have been fine, shouldn't have been an issue. I'm going through all this stuff in my mind. Never was I thinking it was aphids. Anyway, I took a picture and sent it to some of my gardening friends, and they were like, I think you have an aphid infestation. And I'm like, okay, great. So anyway, they gave me some tips on some things to try. So what I'm going to show you today are the things that I've done. The disclaimer is, y'all, this is the first time I've had one. And I don't want you can go buy it if you want to try it, but don't go buy because Barbara said that, oh my God, it's the miracle drug and it's going to work. But what I will tell you though, and you guys have seen on my last garden tour, that as of now, I have not seen any more aphids, and I have new growth on my plants. My tomatoes look healthy, and they are 1,000 times better. I still have leaves on there, I'm clipping off the dead leaves, and I still have leaves on there that look just horrible. But then, and that's more near the bottom, but then as you keep going up, there's tons of new growth on my tomato plants. Some of them have, climbed all the way to the top of the tunnel. So they're definitely not dead, right? And they're still producing. So I can say that they look 1,000 times better. So I'm just going to share with you what I did, and I will tell you at what point I started to see a difference, okay? So the very first thing that I did when I first noticed the little things on the underside of the leaves, before I knew it was an aphid infestation, before I saw them looking like they were about to die, I made up my own insecticidal soap. And a lot of people will tell you to use insecticidal soap like Dawn dish detergent and water. Well, I did one with an essential oil. I did peppermint essential oil. I did Dawn dish detergent, and I did water. The water, obviously, to mix it in. The Dawn dish soap, it helps the solution stick to the plants. That's why you put that on there, so that it can adhere. And then I use peppermint essential oil because the peppermint, I had read and also saw on someone's channel that the peppermint essential oil will deter pests. It kind of messes up their sensory, that strong smell. I sprayed that all over my plants one particular night when I saw those little red things. That was the very first thing that I did. And when I came out the next day, they were gone. So in my mind, it worked, right? And here's the thing, again, because I'm going to talk about lots, 5 main things that I did, and you can pick and choose what you want to try. You can leave comments about if you've tried it, it didn't work, did it work? Just share whatever you want to share, so that somebody can, be helped. The peppermint essential oil in my mind worked because literally the next day they were gone. I did that a couple of times. They just kept coming back. And so one of the things, I don't full-time garden. I have a full-time business. My husband is in full-time ministry, so we do ministry together outside of my business. I'm obviously a wife. I have 2 children, and I do this on the side as my love and my hobby, right? I say that to say that if I did this full-time, the route that I took, I don't know that I would have taken, and I don't know that I would have had to. It's really, I don't know. Because if I was more diligent with spraying the peppermint oil, then maybe I wouldn't have had to go on to, step 3 or 4 is all I'm saying. I think when you are doing it as a hobby versus this is your full-time job, obviously I'm not out here as much as somebody who does it full-time, right? And when I'm out here, usually on average, I probably spend 2 hours a day in my garden, between 1 to 2 hours. And I would say that's probably 5 days a week, right? So that's 10 hours a week. And that's still, again, it feels like a lot for somebody who it's their hobby. But think about somebody who spends 40 hours a week in their garden. They have time to check the undersides of their leaves. They have time to treat it each and every day and all of that. I don't necessarily have the time and haven't made time for that, because when I'm out here, I have an agenda and I'm having to plant, start seeds, I'm harvesting, I'm fertilizing, I'm watering, I'm doing videos, I'm doing a lot of stuff. And that's not a complaint, it's just the reality. So I say that with the caveat that, am I saying that you need to do all 5 of these things? I'm not. I'm just telling you what I did because you guys asked me and I said I would. Okay. So that's the first thing I did, was the peppermint essential oil. And I sprayed it a couple of times. When I came back the next day, it was gone. I mean, it was gone, but they came back. So now fast forward to when I came in and I saw leaves dropping, the whole 9 yards. Got on the phone with some gardening friends, and they told me some tips on how to treat the aphid infestation. So there were 4 main products that I bought and that I did in a rotation, right? So the very first product that I used was something called Pyganic, and this is what it looks like. I got this, everything that I'm going to show you, I got off Amazon. You can get it off Amazon, or you can also get it off Arbico Organics, Arbico. I'll try to put it up at the top. But Arbico Organics, Arbico Organics. It's an online place. They have tons of stuff. And again, everything that I'm using is a quote unquote natural organic product, right? Not an insecticide. So I use this Pyganic. I use that first. When I say first, that's the first thing that I use because I already had this, right? I had bought this earlier this year, before the summer season, because it was on my list of things that I had seen. I had researched. I'm like, okay, I'm going to try that this year or whatever. So I used Pyganic. That worked great. I believe. But then like that was like on a Thursday. I did the Pyganic like on a Thursday. Then on Tuesday, I did Azagard. No, was it Azagard? Anyway, I got it in my notes. But I'll tell you the order. So I did something on a Thursday. I did something on Tuesday the next day. Then I did something again on that Thursday. So within a week, I had done 3 different treatments, right? Because it was an infestation. It wasn't just like 1 or 2. It was on all of my tomato plants, outside and inside. So we were about the business. So the next product that I used was something called Azagard. Let's see. This is what it looks like here. Okay. And this is very similar. When I say it's part of wherever neem oil comes from, the tree, it's very similar. So neem oil is like one part of the tree. Azagard is another part. It's like the root or something like that. So again, very natural. This is very expensive. Okay. So I'm just going to tell you that right now. First of all, if you don't need it, don't buy it. And if you're not having an infestation and you're not desperate, then don't buy this, right? I bought it because I was desperate, because it looked like I was going to lose every tomato that I had. And I was trying to make sure that I had tomatoes for my family and tomatoes to sell. And again, I bought it because I could, okay? But it is expensive. So it's not something that I would go out and be like, oh, let me get that, right? Especially if, don't do that, okay? So I used the Pyganic, and then I used the Azagard. Then I used the Pyganic again, okay? So it was Thursday, Tuesday, Thursday. And I did, again, I mixed it according to the instructions in my backpack sprayer with water. The next thing I used was neem oil. Now, this is one that most people use, very traditional. Oddly enough, I didn't think I had neem oil, but I couldn't find it, so I ordered it again off Amazon. But I ended up finding it, of course, the day after I ordered it. That's the way it always goes. But neem oil, again, this is one that's very affordable, and that's what most people use when it comes to aphids. That is like the known thing, right? So people usually say insecticidal soap or neem oil. So I'm sure that you're very familiar with neem oil. If not, you can get it off Amazon, and you can get it in Walmart, I think, too. You can get it in Home Depot. You can get it in a lot of places. So it's not anything that's not common. The Pyganic and the Azagard is not something that you're going to find in Walmart, right? You're going to have to order that stuff online. And let me read you, I forgot to read you this on the Pyganic. It says it provides rapid knockdown and kill of listed plant pests. Obviously, it can be used on the day of the harvest. Does it give a list of the pests? Yeah. Aphids, beetles, caterpillars, fruit flies, mites, and thrips. So that's the insects that it works on. The Azagard, the active ingredient is azadirachtin, which is part of the neem tree plant thing. You can look it up and research it if you want to, okay? So we used the Pyganic, we used the Azagard, and then we used the neem oil. So I did a treatment of neem oil. So let me back up. So when I used the Pyganic, I actively had aphids, right? When I came out the next day, A lot of them were dead, but I still saw some, which is why I did it again on that two, like in 3 or 4 days, right? I did something else in 3 or 4 days. When I did this as a guard, I have not seen any more. And I did the as a guard. It's probably been 2 weeks since I used this. By the time you see it, like, yeah, 2 weeks since I've done it. I have not seen any more. Not a one. Right? But I went ahead and did the neem oil because just to be sure, just to be on the safe side. Okay? And then the very last thing that I did is something called garlic barrier. It's an insect repellent. It's natural, obviously, because it's garlic. Does it smell like garlic? It smells just like garlic. So, and this is, again, safe and natural to use. And then I got this off Amazon as well. And it has a whole list of insects that it does. And so basically it just repels them because of the odor and because of the smell. So those are the things that I did, and I have seen success. I don't see any more aphids on my plants. I feel like my plants are in recovery, meaning I have tons of new growth. My tomatoes are still on there. 90% of my tomatoes are still green. I'm just waiting for them to blush so I can take them off and let them ripen in the house. But I don't see any active aphids. They're still growing. And when I say recover, there's still like some brown and yellow, and I've shown you guys some of that. But that's the stuff that's old. It's not continuing to increase in terms of the browning and the yellowing. So I can say for me, it worked. If you said, okay, well, Barbara, which product do you think worked? If I'm being honest, again, y'all, the peppermint oil worked. It's just not as strong. And one of the things, again, it's your garden, so you do whatever you want, just like it's my garden, do whatever I want. But in terms of severity or approach, mine was pretty bad, right? So would I have come out the gates doing all of this if it was just a little problem? No, I wouldn't have. And I think I still would start from least to greatest. So to me, I don't try to spray every little time I see something, right? Now, maybe I should have sprayed a few days earlier and I wouldn't have had an infestation. Hindsight is 2020. But my approach is not to just come in and just spray just for good measure. That's not my approach. My approach, I think, what I would like to do is to start from the least to the greatest. So, for example, the least amount of expense, number one. So expense, peppermint oil, dish soap, and water was free. I had all of that in my house. Then if I was stepping it up, the next step probably would have been neem oil in terms of cost, because you can get this for like between, I would say, $8 to $10, somewhere along in there. So that would be the next natural progression. Okay, peppermint oil didn't work. Let me try some neem oil. Okay, if neem oil is not working, then Pyganic. This is probably $25, $30, somewhere along in there. And then the garlic barrier wasn't expensive, like $14, $15. This right here, I'm not doing this for just regular old stuff because it's too expensive to do that. Now this will last me, again, if I was still having an issue, and I can still spray this like for good measure, like once a month or something like that, but this will last me like a whole year. So yeah, that's kind of my approach of kind of how I would do it, from least to greatest, least cost to more cost, and then of course depending on the severity. Mine was pretty severe, so we came out with guns a-blazing. And right now, thankfully, gratefully, prayerfully, I don't see any aphids, okay? But if they do come back, we're going to do the same thing again. And we're going to pray over them and make sure that it's all okay. So anyway, y'all, that's what I did. You guys had asked me in the comments to share with you. I think I told you some of the names, but it's good to always put a name with the actual product so that you can see how it's spelled. You can go look it up on Amazon. And again, you can have it to go. If I was making a recommendation about what to just have on hand, I mean, the garlic berry is just like, it's just like an insect repellent. So I mean, who's gonna run to the smell of garlic? Not many insects. So I think that's just like good to have on hand because you can always use it, and it's a 100% safe. Neem oil, I think most people have that anyway if you're gardening organic. And I think the Pyganic is a good one to have, definitely. So I like the Pyganic. So yeah, that's kind of what I use, and those are I wouldn't say my suggestions, but that's what I use. And so you can take it for whatever it's worth. And let me know if you've tried any of these at all. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Or if you have any comments for somebody else that will help them. I will say that if you're dealing with something like a pest, pressure, infestation, you know, we can talk about, hey, what causes it and all that. I saw on, I think it was on Instagram, somebody said, hey, if your plants were healthy, you wouldn't have pests or something like that. It was a big to-do. Like, people were just like going off, and, you know, that kind of stuff doesn't bother me. Like, I don't get into those kind of debates or whatever. I do think that there is probably some truth to that, in terms of your plants that are more unhealthy probably are more susceptible to disease and pest pressure. I mean, that logically makes sense to me. Just like our bodies, if we have a weak immune system, we're more likely to catch a cold than somebody who has a strong immune system. So I could see where that could be the case, that plants that are more healthy probably are less prone to pest pressure. I don't know, and it's truly an I don't know. I don't know if a plant is healthy 100% if they'll never have pest pressure. I don't know. I'm new at this. I'm still learning. So anyway, thank you guys for joining me. I hope that this was helpful. And again, anytime I can share what I'm doing, I'm happy to do it. So if you like what you're seeing, if this was helpful, please go ahead and comment, leave me a comment below. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. What we always say here is that gardening is a journey. My gardening season, again, did not start off as I intended. And I may not be at the place where I want to be at this part in the season, but gardening is a journey. All I want us to do is to grow together. Don't stop growing. I'll see you next time, friend.